and I promise to ride you as much as my spoilers. Welcome to the channel, I'm Hayes. I talk movies all day, sometimes I'll talk about games, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about Days Gone, and you might be thinking, bro, it's 2023, why are you talking about a 4-year-old game? Well, the answer to that is simple. I'm too poor to buy most games on release, but I did recently get PlayStation Plus Premium, and then it turns out I could have saved money going with the PlayStation Plus Extras option and would have been just fine. But anyway, it means that I finally got to play Days Gone, and now I want to share some thoughts on it. So yeah, this ain't going to be a review that you can use to decide if you want to try it out or not. I reckon by now you've probably decided that already. This is more like, actually, to be honest, I'm not sure what the point of this video is, but this is the internet, so pointless videos are pretty much a given. Anyway, way back in 2019 when this game was coming out, my thoughts were something along the lines of, kinda looks like Sons of Anarchy meets The Last of Us. Now, having gotten through the game, I feel like I can safely say, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Except, it's not, really. Days Gone is by no means a terrible game, and is still, in my opinion, worth playing 4 years later if you haven't already. I mean, you're probably better off playing something from the long list of forgotten games in your Steam library you got on sale 10 years ago, but come on, you and I both know that ain't never gonna happen. Now, the game has some really intense moments, like when taking on zombie hordes, and yes, I know they're called freakers, but they're zombies. Also, the bike riding felt a little awkward at first because I'm used to just holding down the accelerator and going, but can't lie, the way it's done makes sense, especially in the beginning when you have a smaller tank and don't want to use up too much fuel at once. The main storyline is pretty good, although kinda generic. It works well enough for what they're doing. In fact, I'd say that this game ostensibly doesn't do anything really bad, but even still, it just feels like it's lacking something. I mean, it's effectively an open world survival action zombie apocalypse game, but with biker gangs. And that sounds all well and good, but it doesn't commit enough to the survival mechanics to really be a survival game, and doesn't commit enough to the action mechanics to really be an action game. It just kind of sits in this weird spot where all the characters act as if resources are super scarce, and sometimes they are, but mostly not really. You can fill up your tank pretty much anytime you want, for free. You can also restock your ammo, refuel and repair your bike at camps for a fee, but the fee is so cheap. It's not a tough decision at all. I was pretty much refilling every single time. Like, I was never worried. Never. And maybe that's because I played it on normal difficulty. Maybe items and resources are more scarce on the higher modes. But honestly, after getting through it, I have zero inclination to find out. And not because it's a bad game, more because it's just so, you know? Also, it does this thing where it constantly feels like it's skipping sections at awkward times. Like when you're chasing someone on the bike, you shoot at their bike until it's too damaged to ride. Then it goes to a loading screen, comes back, and you're tying up the guy. They don't show you getting off the bike, running over, maybe tackling the man down, just skip straight to tying them up. Or when you go to fight the Ripper boss, Boozer holds his hands out to give Deacon a boost up, Deacon puts his foot on Boozer's hands, and then it goes to load in, comes back, and you're getting kicked by Carlos. They don't show you climbing up, maybe trying to get your footing right, just skip straight to getting kicked. And the radio, oh my days. I mean, I get that's how you find out about jobs and whatnot, but mate, that thing gets so overused. Somebody is always calling you on the radio to tell you something. Sometimes you'd get a job from someone, set off on your bike, and near enough to right away, that same person is calling you on the radio to tell you something else. Like, bro, I was literally just talking to you. Now look, I get it. These probably seem like unnecessary nitpicks, and yeah, they kind of are. But things like this happen throughout the game, and it just adds this layer of awkwardness that stands out far more than it probably should. And also, welcome to the movie room. Nitpicking is kind of what I do here. And speaking of nitpicking, another odd choice they made was that the ground you're riding on can affect the bike's traction, and sometimes can even affect how much damage the bike takes. But Deacon is never affected by weather conditions. Like, this dude would be riding out in the snow with no gloves on and regular clothes and be be just fine. And that brings it back to the whole thing about, is this supposed to be a survival game or not? But let's talk about Jax Teller, Deacon St. John. Actually, you know what? I was right the first time. Days Gone rips off a good 80% of Sons of Anarchy. Okay, maybe that's a wild exaggeration, but mate, the inspiration is obvious. Deacon St. John is pretty much Jax Teller. Both of the best friends, Boozer and Opie, had an old lady who died. The old lady, Sarah and Tara, both work in a scientific field. They even use the same line about ride you as much as my Harley. Except in Days Gone they said ride me as much as your bike. I guess that's enough of a change to avoid getting sued. But yeah, Sons of Anarchy is clearly a big influence on this game, but perhaps not big enough. In Sons of Anarchy, people do use other vehicles. In Days Gone, everyone rides a bike. Plenty of abandoned cars around, nobody drives. Well, not until Boozer at the end. But you'd think in a world where fuel is supposed to be scarce, if you need to travel, you'd want to use something that can carry more people. And maybe people don't take helicopter rides just to tell somebody something they could have told them over the radio. I mean, they pretty much tell you everything else over the damn radio, so why not this? I don't know, I've never lived in a zombie apocalypse, I'm just saying. That's what I'd think. But I mean, look, it's a game. They don't have to be realistic. They just seem like odd choices for me. And by the way, Boozer's death scene should have meant more. Now maybe this is just me, but after everything Boozer went through, feeling like he's the reason Deacon lost contact with Sarah, getting attacked by the Rippers, losing his arm, losing his will to live, and getting a puppy that gave him a reason to keep living, by the time his death scene came around, it should have been an epic, sad moment. Instead it just felt more like a, oh, okay, moment. And again, maybe that's just me. Maybe everyone else felt something more and I'm just dead inside. But it really just didn't pop for me like I think it was supposed to. And then it turns out he wasn't dead, and can't lie though, Boozer coming back was actually done well. It had that surprise factor and the reaction from Deacon of excited disbelief. That really made that whole bit. The game does have a second ending with O'Brien telling Deacon that the virus is evolving and showing him that he's been infected and telling him that they're coming and no one can stop them. But with everything that's happened since this game was released, I don't think they're coming after all. I mean, never say never of course, but it seems unlikely this game is getting a sequel. And honestly, I think that's a shame because the game has a lot of really good ideas, definitely more positives than negatives, plus the negatives, although odd and awkward at times, are relatively minor. I think Days Gone is really just a few refinements away from being a great gaming experience, but as it is now, it's alright. You know, not too bad at all. And definitely not worth all the controversy that happened, so let's talk about that for a minute. So Days Gone director John Garvin was asked why he felt the game didn't do so well with reviewers, and one of the responses he gave, the one that got the most attention, was that woke reviewers couldn't get past a gruff white guy looking at his date's ass. He said that, and then a lot of people accused Garvin of whining and he should just get over it already. And then a lot of other people hopped online talking about, yeah, leave wokeness out of game reviews. So let me just say this. John Garvin and anyone else who works on the game are allowed to feel however they feel about it. Upset, happy, somewhere in between. They're allowed to feel that. As much as the games industry is a business, it is still a creative medium. And when creating something, a lot of who you are can end up in the final game, whether directly or indirectly. So when people don't like it or complain about certain things, it's always going to be personal to the creative. For all we know, the parts of the game getting criticized could be based on the last thing his dad told him before he left to go college, or some other deeply personal aspects of his life. I don't know the guy, I'm just making stuff up. But even if it's not based on something deeply personal, it's still something that as a creative, on some level, you invest emotionally into. Because if you didn't, it wouldn't be art. It would be Call of Duty. And yeah, maybe most game devs keep their hurt feelings to themselves, and maybe that's the appropriate way to deal with it. But we've been telling men to be more expressive for years, so let the man express. But now the other side to that is, reviewers are allowed to like what they like and not like what they not like, because creative projects are not just personal to the creator, they can be personal to the person experiencing it too. Maybe something in the game triggers a traumatic memory, or maybe it reminds them of the last time they were truly happy. And even if it ain't that deep, it could be just things they've grown bored of already. In any case, everybody should be allowed the space to express how they feel about things, especially when those feelings are in disagreements of your own. But this is the internet, so every pseudo-intellectual has to make a bunch of 20-minute videos about a game they didn't even play, talking about how wokeness is ruining everything. Well, here's the thing. Culture changes, society changes, people change, and reviewers reflect that, or at least try to reflect that in some way. But it's been many, many, many years now, and games are still not ruined. So hopefully that goes some way into showing just how full of shit some people are. But that's what I think of Days Gone. What do you think of Days Gone? Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.